I'm Erin Weeks, and I am a member of the Heights Baptist Church in Colonial Heights, Virginia. And I am making this video today. It's the very first time I've ever made a video for the team at our church that is making masks and headbands for healthcare providers and for our community as part of our Love 804 initiative, which is just a way that we have for loving on the community that we're in. Our team is putting together masks by the hundreds, and we've got a whole team of sewers, but I was focusing on figuring out how to make the headbands for healthcare providers so that they can work as ear savers, and we'll show that to you in a second. But I had several team members that were asking for instructions and tutorials on how to make these headbands, and I had been doing a lot of research and gotten some various ideas together and played with the measurements and played with different ideas, and so I thought I'd put a tutorial together for our team so that they can see several ideas and see what I have learned during this process, and be able to choose from what they have available in their home, what style works best for their skill level and the materials available to them, because we're all doing the best we can, working with the materials that we can pull out of our own personal stashes to help our community. So let me show you what I've found. There are a couple of different fabrics that have been donated to our group. This one right here has a stretch to it. It stretches one direction, does not stretch the other direction. So if you are going to use a material like this for your headbands, make sure that you are cutting the long direction of your cut is towards the stretch. And I cut them out in 4 inches by 20 inches was the dimension that worked well for me. I turned the right sides together so that it's kind of inside out and sewed one long seam down the middle. Now for this style that I'm going to show you first, I left it open about an inch, inch and a half on the 2 ends. Press the seam so that everything lies as flat as possible. You're going to hear me say quite a few times to press what you're working with, so keep your iron hot and handy, because I feel like sewing goes a lot better when everything is well pressed. Once you have sewn that, then you just flip it inside out. You can just tuck it, and you can also, this is a wire hanger that my husband used to just run inside. You can hook the other side and kind of pull it through. But however you want to use to feed that through back on itself, you can use, I think some people use safety pins. You can do that to feed it back through on itself. But again, once you have fed it back through, you're going to want to take the ends that haven't been sewn and press them in and press the whole thing so that it lies flat, okay? Once you have done that, you're gonna unfold the end, press the wrong sides together again, and, oops, sorry, I'm showing it the wrong way. Take your 2 ends, press those together, and then sew right across with about a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Everything I'm doing is using a 1/8 to 1/4, or if you're a quilter, you might call it a scant 1/4 inch seam for all of the seaming that I'm talking about right here. So you can do a 1/4 inch seam or a scant 1/4 right there. And then once that is sewn, you will just pull this and it will pop it into that spot right there, okay? So at that point, it'll look like this with this edge being open. You will already have pressed that, so you'll just line up where you've pressed and then just come and top stitch that to close and seal that. Once that is closed and sealed, you will just take your headband, find roughly the midpoint of your headband, and put a button on. I'm using at least 3/4 inch buttons. The majority of the designs for the masks are using 1/4 inch elastic, so I'm choosing a 3/4 inch button in order for it to have room to grab that elastic once it's sewn on. The purpose of these is I'm going to use a headband that doesn't have the buttons, because this is what I made for myself as I was just playing with the design. Is they put it on themselves and as a headband, and then the button being at the midpoint is right above the ear, and so when they attach the face mask, they can hook the face mask to the button, and then it's not rubbing on the back of their ears for the duration of their shift. Because a lot of the nurses that are doing the behind the ears masks that everybody is making are reporting that their ears are getting sore during the shift. And so this is a way to save those ears. So that midpoint ends up lining up to right about here when you do it that way. So that is the way that I have figured out for sewing these that uses the least amount of resources. But you're not always going to have flexible fabric. So I've come up with a couple of different ways of doing it. If you don't have flexible fabric and you are dealing with 100% cotton, this is just quilter's cotton that had already been cut to make a log cabin quilt. So these are cut at 2.5 strips. If you are at a quilting store, you will see like Bolly Pops or any of the fabric quilting strips. That's all this is right here. If you are making your own from fabric, from traditional quilting fabric, it's going to be a 2.5 inch strip, cut the full width of fabric. And if you're dealing with bed sheets, then I would cut these to about 20 to 21 inches for an individual strip. Now this one you'll find right here is one full strip. What I would do here is split that and then sew them all along 2 seams on the 2 sides so that it ends up looking like that. But of course it would be seamed on both sides. Again, then you would flip it and press it so that it ended up looking like this. And that is how this one was made, was 2.5 inch strips of fabric pressed. Once you have done that, there are 2 ways that you can secure it. Again, depending on what you have, I'm trying to show you options so that you can use what you have on hand. One option is just to take a little hair tie. And when you take that little hair tie, you can take that end, just use this as an example, fold it over, well, put the hair tie in, sorry, fold it over once, fold it over twice. Why am I folding it over twice? I'm trying to hide any raw edges. Once you've folded it over twice, your raw edge is hidden under here, and then you can either straight stitch or zigzag stitch along here. I will tell you that this style of doing this with a triple fold over like this, my needle was continually making bird's nests and I was getting stuck. And so this has been somewhat frustrating for me. Now, if you have a more robust machine, I'm working with a Brother. It's a Brother that has served me very well in quilting. I've had it for about 10 years and it's been a great machine, but it was not doing well with doing a zigzag over this. Again, if you have, you know, a Bernina, a Husqvarna, your machine may be able to do that, but my little Brother wasn't holding up to it. So that's one way you can do this if you are wanting to use these hair ties. I'm trying to save my elasticated options for when I'm dealing with a non-elasticated type of material, because I found I made some that were elasticated with the elasticated material and I didn't see any great benefit. I tried on both kinds. One was not clearly better than the other, and so might as well save your resources and just sew it in on itself. But clearly when you're dealing with an inflexible fabric, you need the give. Now I have, I'm just using what elastic I already had on hand. This is about 1.25 inches elastic, and this is a 1 inch elastic. Cut this in about a 3-inch section. And if you're dealing with this, you know, cotton kind, at this point, you would just kind of fold it in on itself like that. You would, let's see here. I'll take that again. What I would do at this point, if I was doing this style, I would just sew all the way down, not leave this 1.5 inch gap, okay? Just sew it all the way down. and then fold this in, and then just feed that in there. Feed it in about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. Of course, you've cut this to 3 inches. By the time you do that and fold that in on that side, you end up with it looking like this. Then you just top stitch across both of those. Make sure in all of your top stitching to always double back on the ends. Every time you're doing a top stitch, whether it's here, whether it is here, anytime you're doing any top stitching, make sure that you are back stitching at the end of each one, just to secure it, because these are going to be washed right along with the face masks, and so you want them to stand up to the washing. I think that is everything. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. You can, I guess, respond at the bottom of this video or Facebook me. I am Erin McDill Weeks on Facebook. And hopefully this has been helpful. You guys have a great time sewing, and thank you for being willing to bless your community by sharing your love and loving on those around you and helping their world be a little bit better of a place. Have a good day.